Servitors. Now this follows on from our last podcast, which was basically about puppets. This is one step further, one step deeper into magic. So if you haven't watched the previous one, have a look, it might be interesting. Now, before we actually go into creating our magical servitor, we need to talk a little bit about magic. Now, we're an old craft coven, and the way we differ from many other types of coven is that we do not believe in the threefold law, we do not believe in the karmic effect. What we do believe in is personal responsibility. Now, nocturnal servitors, you may have heard the term, you may not, some people call them egregores. That's just getting a bit flash and complicated, to be frank. They are nocturnal servants in all reality. Now, what are nocturnal servants? Well, if you do any sort of magic, what you're doing is you're creating thought forms, energy thought forms, and these are merely a progression from that. Now, most of you will have come across thought forms. If you've done magic, you'll have seen them. If you haven't done magic, you probably have come across them anyway. Most of you will know of a child, perhaps you were one yourself, where you had imaginary friends. But these imaginary friends are merely thought form energies created by the child. They're real, they exist. The fact that you can't see them and the child can doesn't mean they're not there, they really are. A major emphasis on that is you may find adolescents, particularly young girls, who are going through the trauma of puberty and various other adolescent angst. They sometimes create chaotic thought forms. The mediums will call these poltergeists. But in reality, what they are is the energies created within the adolescent being chaotic in their environment. So most of us will have come across thought forms in one form or another prior to this. But what we want to do is to create specific thought form energies into a shape, into a servant that will do our bidding in whatever way that may be necessary. For example, one of your family members, one of your coven members, a close friend maybe, is going away on business or on holiday in an area that may be perhaps dangerous. Perhaps they're going out to the Middle East, perhaps they're going to a big US city, Los Angeles or somewhere, where there is genuine possibilities that they may be mugged, attacked, and you want protection for them. Well, the ideal way is to make a servitor to protect them whilst they're away. Maybe you know someone who's being bullied at school, at work. You can create a nocturnal servitor to offer them protection and to stop the situation that they're in at the time. Or maybe, this is one we've done quite a lot lately and in the past. You may be maybe an area of land that is either sacred or particularly beautiful that is about to be bulldozed by developers. Maybe you need to create some nocturnal servitors to protect that land. Now, some of the rituals needed to make magical servitors or egregores can be relatively difficult to do. They're more than I can do in a small podcast like this. You could write a whole book on how to create ritual to do that. So this one has been pared down to be simplicity itself, really. So first thing you need to do is to think deeply about what it is you're going to do. You need to think, what is the job that I want done? What is the time limit, which is vital, for the job to have it finished within a certain specified time, be it 24 hours, one full moon? What deity do I invoke to help me create this entity? What you want is an entity created to do a specific job, and so you want a specific deity that matches the job that you want done. So put some thought into it. Then you need to come up with a name for your nocturnal servitor. Now this is not a name Fred, Joe, Mary. You need a magical name that nobody, it's got to be a made up name basically, a name that nobody but you and the servitor will ever know. And you can never use this name again. So take a jumble of 5 or 6 letters, mix them up and make up a name. But it needs to be a name that you don't associate with anything or anybody else. And then you need to write out your spell. Before you do anything, you need to be very specific, very precise about what this job is for this servitor, how long it's got to do it, and when on a specific day the job must be finished by, and what you intend to do then. So, having given it some serious thought, How do you do the ritual? Well, you cast your circle in the usual manner, and you invoke your chosen god or goddess, and there you've put some energies into that. You've worked out exactly which one you want to create. You then raise a cone of power, which is very simple to do in a coven on your own. Use whatever power raising method you think fit, chanting, particularly a chant associated with the deity that you've reigned. Then you have to have got your image of the servitor you want. Now, lots of more complicated rituals will tell you to make particular images out of clay, particularly black clay. This one is going to be much more simple. What you need is a drawing of the entity as you envisage it. Now, it can just be a blobby shape, it could be anything you like, but if you're giving it a specific job, if you're asking it to do something specific, it will need the tools. If you're asking it to do something quickly and to be speedy, you might want to give it 4 legs, make it some form of animal. If you want it to use hands, be dexterous so that it can manipulate things, you'll obviously want it to have hands and be human. If you're asking it to stop a bully or to protect someone from a genuine danger, you don't want them with great claws and huge teeth. They actually might do damage. What you want is something that will look sinister and be a protector. For instance, I've very quickly, no I haven't, I've printed it off the computer, done a picture of a sinister looking man in black with a top hat. I don't know if you can actually see that on the screen. That sort of thing is what you want. You need to put your mind to it. Just draw it in your ritual circle, having raised your cone of power. You need to have a basic image in your mind first. Having got that, draw it. This is your creation, and it's vitally important that this is kept safe. Then, having done that, you take your servitor, your drawing, your creature, and you take it starting in the east to each quarter in turn. You hold it out at the edge of your circle and summon in the black, dark energies from the ether to enter in and give life to your servant. And you use your deity to help you do that. You then move round to the next quarter, which will be north. This is the way we're going. Follow round west, south, doing the same again. And you do this 3 times. And every time you do it, you're raising more energy, you're sucking more life into your entity, into your servitor, which now has a name. And you go to each corner. Now this is a complicated ritual. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So what you need to do, having gone round 3 times and sucked life into your servitor, you need to then lay that on your altar in the centre of your circle and visualise the creature coming to life. This, your servitor, is building and is creating its own energy. There, you then call to your entity, your goddess or your god. For instance, you've called in the Morrigan to help you create a protector because she's a powerful goddess. And you call to Morrigan and then you say to her the name of your servitor. Having been brought to life by my will and by my will alone and with the aid of Morrigan, for example, I command you now, you were created to fulfill one single task, and it is to be your only thought. All your efforts must be on the dedicated to this task. You will never divert from this task. Your task is, and then you must be very, very precise about what you want them to do. And you follow on. Whenever you venture from this form, this will be your only thought. You have limited time to perform this task. You must return to this form and this image and this place of power with your task completed on the following full moon, the following evening, never more than 1 full moon. At which time and at which place your life will cease. This is my will, so mote it be. You then take your energy form, it's in your mind, you can visualise it, you can see it, you're standing in the centre of your place of power, and you release your energy form out into the ether to do your bidding. Then, relax, cakes, wine, relax, ground yourself, remove the circle. Having done that, you have your form. your picture. This is your living entity. This needs to be kept safe. When I do one, keep it in my magical works, in this grimoire, along with the written down spell working that you have, that is where it's creating whatever work you want it to do. Both are kept safe until the time period is ended. If you've given them, for example, your friend's gone to, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, and she's gone for a fortnight, you give it a fortnight. You don't give it 1 day more. You don't think, oh well, it's done a good job there, so I'll just let it get on with it. Because you've created a thought form energy, and whilst it has a task, you've been very specific in that task, that's all it will do. If you let it wander freely through the ether, having finished its task, it will have no job, and it will grow, and its energies will multiply, and it will take on a life force of its own, and you'll be in deep trouble. You need to give it a specific lifespan, and when that lifespan is done, on that particular, there can be no exceptions, you must do it. You've created this chap, and he's wandered off doing all this wonderful protection, and the time's come up. He's had his 2 weeks, his full moon, and you recreate the circle again. And then you do everything backwards, basically. You suck into this image, your visualised servitor, you take them in the opposite direction round the quarters, invoking the same deity you did before to help you put an end to the life of this servitor. And at each quarter you allow its energy to go back out into the ether, dissipated as if it was not there. And on the third trip round, the time you get back, you have totally and utterly emptied all power and all energy from this image. And then both the image and your spell are burnt immediately in a cauldron within the centre of the circle, and it is finished, it is done. Now, there must be a time span for these. I would never suggest you let one exist for more than perhaps 2 full moons at a very maximum, but most can complete their job in the time you give them to do it. So if you've given them that someone's being bullied, give them a week. They need no more. It can solve, and you can always make another one. What you don't want is one of these thought form energy creations wandering around the ether doing whatever they damn well please because you had to go to Tesco's that night and couldn't sort out putting it to sleep, which is what you're doing. You're creating a life form, and it's a serious thing. It will happen, and you cannot allow it to just wander around doing what it wants. You've given it a task, you've been very precise in its task. Having completed its task, its life is no more. Its purpose is ended, so you end its life. Now, I know people who have all sorts of protections around their home. For instance, I know a particular chap who's got a wonderful collection of books. Now, he may well have, I would if I was him, I would have one of these servitors protecting that library of books because they're invaluable. But they need replacing. Every month I would replace them. Once you start, it's easy. But what you must never do is use the same name again. Once the name has been used, ignore it, forget it. But always keep safe everything that you've made until it's time to destroy it, and then destroy it on the time you were told. And also, bear in mind, we don't believe in the threefold law, but there is a lot of responsibility in what you're doing. You're sending out a creature, for instance, your friend who just came back from Los Angeles and she's been protected wonderfully. And your servitor has kept away those who perhaps might wish her harm or to rob her or to damage her in any way. Once she gets back home, she doesn't need that same protection. If you leave it in place, that servitor will expand on its energies, and it will start, someone looks at her sideways and it's going to be attacking them because it hasn't got a role. All it knows is it's supposed to protect, and there are no limits to that protection. You need to put limits in, you need to be responsible, but use these things if you can. I would suggest that if you have a serious task for a nocturnal servitor, try it, use it. Just think very carefully before you do it and make sure you're within the guidelines.